first general question would be, what the Italy's election result tell us about the country and its future, and what are the reasons that Italian has chosen a I would say, pro-fascist party, if I am not wrong, or ultra-nationalist for ruling in Italy?
Thank you very much, Nevzat. As you mentioned, thank you very much for your introduction. And we've been knowing each other for 14 years now. I think we met in the USA in 2008. We shared some time in Hartford Seminary. Now it's called the Hartford International University for Religion and Peace, but basically it is the same place. It's always a pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me. I am trying since I'm not, as you mentioned in your introduction, I am not a political scientist. I'm going through a very brief analysis of the result of this September 25 general elections. That in fact the result is controversial, both controversial and crystal clear at the same time. Since it's controversial because of the, as you mentioned, of the origins of the winning party, but also crystal clear because since a long time ago it didn't happen anything like this. We have a clear winner. Okay, so the center-right won and the right part of the center-right won. And it is Giorgia Meloni's party, as you mentioned, Fratelli d'Italia. I am trying, if you don't mind, I can share my screen. I have a short presentation. It's a short PowerPoint presentation. I am trying to share. Now you should see my Zoom screen. And now you should see my PowerPoint. Am I right? Yes.
Perfect.
Can you see? Perfect.
Yes.
So is it center right or far right? It started this way because mainly during the campaign and in general, the Italian mainstream press described this coalition as centrodestra, that it literally means center right. Okay. So this is how it's been described and how Giorgia Meloni herself described her coalition, not her party, but her coalition. While mainly from foreign press, this is from the, I apologize for the quality, but it is from the New York Times, Giorgia Meloni's hard right party, Italy's voting. They say, earlier return suggests that she could be Italy's next prime minister, the first woman to hold the position, and the first with post-fascist roots. So clearly it goes to a far right description. So this is the main thing that somehow describes the coalition as center right and the party as a clearly right-wing party. So we have to, first of all, we have to say a couple of things about the elections that of last Sunday. There's been the first election after the reformation of the parliament. In fact, through a constitutional referendum, the number of the House of the members of the House of the Representatives and of the Senate has been drastically reduced for the first time in the history of Italian Republic. As you can see, Camera dei Deputati, that's the House of Representatives, or sometimes it's called the lower chamber in the Anglo-Saxon way, has been reduced from 631 actually, because there's an extra member. It's a very technical thing. Anyway, from 630 to 400 only, and the Senate from 321 congressmen to 200. What does this mean? It means that it is more difficult to become a deputy. It's much more difficult. And as a consequence, several, let's say, old and experienced politicians has been kept out of the parliament for the first time for many years. I have in mind a couple of leaders, former party leaders, that have been out of the parliament since 25 years. For the last 25 years, they've been part of the parliament. Now they are not anymore because of this new law. This is the coalition, the three parties that made the three main parties who made up the coalition, the center-right coalition I was mentioning. Giorgia Meloni, of course, she was born in 1977, and this is important. It's been it's perceived as never being part of the government, and this is one of the reasons of her victory. We'll go through it later. She's a new face. She's new to the house of power. She's not used to be in power, and so she could be an option. Okay, all the previous ones failed, so we are going to choose somebody new. Okay. Matteo Salvini, the infamous leader of the Lega, she's been Minister of the Interior, and she had a lot of consensus in the past 5 years, and then she dilapidated it. We'll talk about it later. And of course, the Highlander Silvio Berlusconi, who's still there. She's been allowed to be elected again after she had a number of problems with justice, and now he's back, and he's been 4 times head of government. Basically, these two parties worked as support for Giorgia Meloni, who was clearly the leader of the coalition. They just supported her, providing more votes, and this is how it worked. I said perceived as never been part of the government, since she's been actually the Ministry of the Youth in the 4th Berlusconi government in 2008, but nobody remembers her. She was not effective at all. The Minister of the Youth was something that basically had no impact on society, so she's been basically forgotten as a minister. So she's perceived as a new force, as a new face for the government. Okay, here you can see Fratelli d'Italia in the general elections in 2018, she had 4.35%. Then moved to 6.4%, and this year 26%. Okay, the only political force, the only political party that kept on growing in consensus and number of votes. Okay, Lega 17% in 2018, 34% in 2019, and now 8%. This has been mainly due to the let's say, apologize for the word, but for the dumbness of their leader, Matteo Salvini, who actually made the government fall, and then showed up saying, not giving the idea of being completely in control, not only of his party, but also of his personal figure. He was out drinking in the beaches and said, this is how Minister of Interior should be, because I'm a part of the people. And then in August 2019, he made the government fall, and Giuseppe Conte was the leader at the time of Movimento 5 Stelle, and he was the prime minister at that time. He said, okay, but even if you make the government fall, we are not going to the elections. And basically, he showed he didn't know. Okay, he just said, I make the government fall, so we go to the elections. I got 34%, and so I will gain more seats in the parliament that I could currently have, because he was staying in the parliament at that time with the 17% of the previous elections. These were European elections, so it didn't affect the Italian parliament. Okay, so he basically didn't know that even the government's fall, we can make a new one without going to the ballots. Okay, and so this caused a lot of a loss of consensus, a strong loss of consensus in his party, and so he dropped down to 8%. Forza Italia showed a big decrease in votes from 2018 to 2019, and then basically it kept the same consensus. This is why 2018 and 2019, it was the time while Berlusconi was not allowed to be elected, so he was not allowed to be an active contribution to his party. Then he came back, and even though he's 85 years old, it is still the party is still relying on him 100%. In fact, his party didn't lose much, basically kept the same because of his support. Movimento 5 Stelle, the famous 5-star movement, 32%, and then dropped down to 17, and down to 15. Actually, this has been there's been a rebound between 2019 and 2022, since the 17% dropped down to 10%, and then former ministry foreign ministry Giuseppe Di Maio, he lost his he left the party and left the party completely to Giuseppe Conte, was the prime minister during the pandemic. And even though many of them didn't like him, the ones of his party appreciated his work during the pandemic. So actually, this is not a bad result for Five Stars movement, since there's been a rebound between 2019 and 2022. Okay, the Democratic Party is doing staying there, but I don't want to waste much time on this. Più Europa is an interesting force. It's been founded and led by former European Commissioner Emma Bonino, and actually they are out of the parliament, because if you got less than 10%, less than 3%, you're not allowed to have any representative in the parliament.
Okay.
So she's out of the parliament. So this is basically the votes to Fratelli d'Italia came. I read 70% from Lega, who were disappointed by the moves of the leader, and so they decided to vote for Fratelli d'Italia, and some also from Forza Italia, but mainly from Lega, who actually completely dissipated and dismissed completely their consensus through some not
sorry for interrupt. Could we say that the people from centrist or right, they moved to a little bit more far right?
Somehow, Lega has always been a party with clearly right-wing tendencies, but they were born as an independentist movement from the north. At the beginning, it was called Lega Nord, then Lega Veneta, then Lega. And Matteo Salvini, its leader, came from, say, let's go with independence from Rome, and then supporting the country, and then supporting Europe. Okay, so at the beginning, Lega was a clearly right-wing party, but with some peculiar ideas and some peculiar features. Some of them, of course, most of their electors were from, let's say, right-wing ideas, and therefore, we're disappointed from our party now. We go to Fratelli d'Italia. I don't know if this vote has been perceived as we go even more right on the right side, or just there's another party in the same coalition. We're disappointed from ours and we vote for them. That's okay. The same from Forza Italia. Forza Italia was a center-right party. The most right-wing electors went to Fratelli d'Italia clearly with no doubt. All right, and then, okay, the figure of Giorgia Meloni is central. Then later we'll show you a few seconds video of her. She's been active in politics since she was 15. It's true in the young movements of Alleanza Nazionale, and we go through it, and then never been part of Movimento Sociale. Movimento Sociale Italiano, MSI, the next one will explain it, is a party that's been founded in 1947 after the ban of the fascist party that could not, it still cannot be reconstructed in Italy, cannot be presented in Italy as a fascist party. But in 1947, there were those former fascists and post-fascists, that even former fascists, that founded this party in 1947 called Movimento Sociale Italiano. In 1994, Movimento Sociale became Alleanza Nazionale. And now we can see, and now since 2014, Giorgia Meloni has been the president of Fratelli d'Italia, the Brothers of Italy, as you said. This is the logo of Movimento Sociale. It was a party inspired, as I said, by the fascist party, founded in 1947. And in 1972, they added this sentence, Destra Nazionale, the national right. It's been interesting, but here you can see the flame, the tricolor flame that's clearly goes back to the fascist era, and it's been used by some sections of the fascist party at the time that could not be replaced by anything else, since the fascist party could not be rebuilt since the war. But the flame is a returning feature. So 1994, MSI became Alleanza Nazionale, okay, the National Alliance. As you can see, the flame is always there, right? And it's still MSI, still there, smaller, smaller, but it's there. And also Movimento Sociale, MSI, still
That's
there.
very interesting.
Since the leader of the time was Gianfranco Fini, and the theories were from Dr. Fisichella, who was a theorist of, let's say, post-fascist sanitarist right wing, okay? And through this idea is that, okay, we have to go and focus on a more European right-wing parties and not radical. We have to take the distance. We have to free ourselves from fascism. So we have to go towards a European right and modern movement. And this was the reason why they funded Alleanza Nazionale. They founded in Alleanza Nazionale in 1994, 1995 actually it was. So in 2009, the party was closed. The party was, but because they decided to resign from all opposition, the leaders, and went together to a larger coalition that was called Popolo della Libertà, the people of freedom, led by Silvio Berlusconi. So Silvio Berlusconi in 2009 became the only leader of the center-right coalitions, plural, okay? So all the parties went there and they presented themselves to the elections with just one symbol, Il Popolo della Libertà. Forza Italia, Alleanza Nazionale, all the other right-wing parties went through one symbol. And so in 2009, they decided to close the party, but not all of the members of Alleanza Nazionale were so towards the center to say we follow Berlusconi and we need something more right-wing. And so in 2012, they funded Fratelli d'Italia. You can see the close similarity of these two symbols. It's both of them are circled. The flame is still there, and even the font is similar. You see, Alleanza Nazionale, Fratelli d'Italia. Okay, the Brothers of Italy. Basically, they started as the right wing of the more center-oriented Alleanza Nazionale, and then the People of Freedom. Okay, this was the origin in 2012. In 2014, Giorgia Meloni became the president of Fratelli d'Italia. And since two elections, the European ones and this one, they presented themselves with this symbol. Okay, Giorgia Meloni, Fratelli d'Italia, and then the flame. In the last, let's say, 10 years after Berlusconi, each party identified itself with one person. So you can even find somebody in the street to say, you can ask them, who is Giorgia Meloni? Everybody knows. Okay, what is Fratelli d'Italia? Somebody say the first words of the national anthem. All right. So the connection, I voted for Meloni, right? I voted for Fratelli d'Italia. Very few people say that. It is the same for Berlusconi. It is Forza Italia, and the same for Salvini and the Lega. If you go to Matteo Salvini's Facebook page, there's a big face of Matteo Salvini with it's written Lega Salvini Premier. So Lega and Salvini as a prime minister.
Okay,
identification with the person has been very, very widespread.
It's like a strategy, as far as I see.
Clearly, because it did work in the past. It did work with Berlusconi, and then the rest is since. In fact, one of the accusations that's been made to the Democratic Party for losing these elections was that they didn't have a strong enough leader, a leader strong enough. Enrico Letta is a good guy, but he's an intellectual. He's been in Paris for many years. He was teaching there. He's not one of these strong personalities. So this is one of the reasons why he's been accused. Okay, here, yeah, we go through this quite fast. The strategy of Giorgia Meloni in her election campaign: careful revolutions This is interesting. She mentioned it in the one of the last speeches in Rome. I have all the fonts anyway. If you need the sources, I have all the sources if you need them. And she said, we are going to set up a careful but not soft revolution, a revolution that does not water down anything. Okay, this is really a kind of double standard, right? I am saying what people need to listen to, what people need to hear about my not being a fascist anymore. So somebody who's clearly against fascism can vote for me. But then I say it doesn't water down anything. I mean, I am always, my roots are there, and this is how I am. In fact, the renunciation of fascism, enough not to be accused of being neo-fascist. There's a number of quotations. I'm not going to them now, but in which they say, okay, I'm against the racial laws. Mussolini made mistakes. Racial laws were a mistake. The authoritarianism of his regime was a mistake, but I say I hate fascism and I completely regret it. Never said it. And then she had to take care of the two, as I defined them as showy and extravagant. Salvini and Berlusconi, they are unpredictable. They never know, you never know what they can say in public. They could say things that could ruin completely your election campaign without being aware of it, right? They are completely, Salvini is not very intelligent, and Giorgia Meloni is very intelligent. And this is why, some of the reasons why. Berlusconi, I mean, he's Berlusconi. Okay, everybody knows him. Okay, this is the slide. I'm going to dedicate a little bit more time. Then we are going to towards the end with the European Union. In the last election campaign, she made some particularly strong and significant statements. The first is that she is against the crime of torture. The crime of torture has been introduced 3 or 4 years ago in the Italian laws, because otherwise, let's say, if somebody takes someone and he closed him in his garage and beats him for 2 days, you can just accuse him. You could just accuse him of kidnapping, okay, not of the violence. Now it's torture. So it's a stronger and stronger crime. And the reason why she said that she's against the crime of torture is because otherwise this would not allow policemen to fulfill their duties. Okay, so she's against the crime of torture because this does not allow policemen to fulfill their duties. Okay, this is very strong. It means policemen can beat somebody to death, and they are always right. You cannot accuse them. With this one, you can accuse.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Same-sex marriages, okay, clearly as any right-wing party, against the citizenship for foreigners, even if they were born in Italy, ius soli, ius culturae, and these things. And the welcoming of non-European migrants. There is a very interesting speech that she delivered on August 25, 2022, in which she said, we should not welcome non-European migrants because they are not Christian. Christian religion is coming up later. Anyway, they are not Christian. So we should take migrants from Venezuela. She said, why don't we take them from Venezuela? In Venezuela, they are Christian, and most of them are often of Italian origin. So
very interesting.
Very interesting, really. And she is against multicultural society. Why? Because there is a plan, I'm quoting, there is a plan to deconstruct our society and to take our identity away from us. Okay, I
have written his Twitter that's on about this issue. That's what she was saying.
Anyway, yeah, the idea of this international plan for anyway. All right, towards the European Union. Okay, this is, and I'm going to the end. I have a short video at the end. She's been very clear that she said that the attitude of Italy towards Ukraine will not change with their government. They are going to support Ukraine even with weapons. That made it clear. While Salvini and Berlusconi are much more pro-Russian, she didn't say that any, and she made it clear from the beginning, I am going to, even though of course she still has a very good relationship with Viktor Orban, with the Vox leader in Spain, and with Marine Le Pen and others. So this idea of this sovereign nationalist way of thinking, put this way, in Europe, she's perfectly in that way. But she made it clear that about the war in Ukraine. Okay, during her campaign, she made it clear many times, and she said she wants to reassure everybody that with her government, nothing will change. And I will give you this very short video here. What happened here? Okay, I can. Give me a second. All right, no. Just, I'm trying to get out of this. Okay, I can end the presentation and start it back later with the last. Okay, this is what I was looking for. All right. This is her speech. Just a few, just 1 minute of her speech.
5 ans, et je suis la présidente des Fratelli d'Italia, le parti politique des conservateurs italiens. Depuis plusieurs jours, je lis des articles dans la presse internationale sur les prochaines élections qui donneront à l'Italie un nouveau gouvernement, dans lesquels je suis décrit comme un danger pour la démocratie, pour la stabilité italienne, européenne et internationale. J'ai lu que la victoire de Fratelli d'Italia aux élections de septembre conduirait à un désastre, un tournant autoritaire à la sortie de l'Italie de l'euro et à d'autres absurdités de ce genre. Rien de tout cela n'est vrai. Mais je sais très bien que ces articles sont inspirés par les puissants circuits médiatiques de la gauche, qui ici en Italie est très fort dans les rédactions de journaux et dans celles des programmes de télévision, mais qui est une nette minorité parmi le peuple italien. Il a également été dit qu'un gouvernement de centre-droite mettrait en danger le Fonds européen de Next Generation EU et la mise en œuvre du plan national de relance et de résilience. Mais je demande catégoriquement ces narratifs absurdes. Sur ces terrains, le gouvernement Draghi aurait pu faire plus, mais il n'a pu faire non pas à cause de Fratelli d'Italia, le seul parti d'opposition, mais à cause d'une majorité trop hétérogène et querelleuse, le même qui a provoqué la fin de ce gouvernement. That is why Italy needs a united and clear-minded government
that in English and in Spanish. Anyway,
avoid wasting a Europe's money, but also foster investments and growth in our country.
Okay. Anyway, it is very clear that she wants to make clear that she.
We can continue until the English finishes because
in English. Yeah, sorry, please.
We might have
Also be aware,
we might have some
in
English
Italy
speaker.
for more than a decade, governments have not been the outcome of what the citizen chose by voting, but rather have been the outcome of agreements, often under the table or unorthodox, between the same parties that were fighting each other in the electoral campaign. In these 10 years, the left, which has failed to win elections in Italy since as far back as 2006, has managed to stay in government almost all the time. There's a great anomaly in the Western political landscape, because in a democracy, normally those who lose elections should go to opposition. On the other hand, for too many years in Italy, those who lost elections find themselves in government, achieving very bad results. In this decade, our nation has experienced an unprecedented social and economic decline, with a progressive deterioration of public finances, the quality of life of citizens, and the competitiveness of our businesses. With the left in power, the state has turned hostile to citizens and businesses, increasingly violating individual liberties. Yes, freedom. Freedom is for us the most precious wealth. This compass guides our historical judgment. The Italian right has handed fascism over history for decades now, unambiguously condemning the suppression of democracy and the ignominious anti-Jewish laws. And equally unambiguous, of course, is our condemnation of Nazism and communism, the latter being the sole totalitarian ideology of the 20th century that still is in power in some countries, surviving its tragic failures, and that the left has a hard time condemning, perhaps partly because it has received generous funding from the Soviet Union for decades. En la misma brújula de la libertad, orientamos nuestro...
It reminds me exactly the ideology of what we have seen after before World War II, that the campaign of ideology against each other, the extreme left, extreme right, they are accusing each other to not follow the democracy and not bring the social economic welfare to the citizen. In fact, they both want the same target, but the way they move is totally different. Yeah, let's finish this, and I would like to ask also some question, and I would like to also hear a personal view of you as an Italian after you done your presentation.
Yeah, I'm just finishing with this, that currently we can only rely on her words, and which action she's going to take, and still completely unknown and somehow even unpredictable. This is why, first of all, she didn't form the new government yet, and second, we have to figure out if she will actually keep the promises, if some of her allies will force her to do something. I remember when Donald Trump, by the way, she supported him from the beginning. When Donald Trump won in the USA, they said, yes, okay, that was the election campaign. Then now he's going to be a president like the others. Sadly, he kept his promises. So he wasn't a president like the others, but he made, very, very strange things and weird things. Opening coal factories again after 30 years, or reducing the number of national parks. That's not been done. I'm not saying expressing my political convictions. I'm just relying on facts that after 50 years, for the first time, Donald Trump reduced the surface of national parks. Never been done before. Okay, yeah. So just something that nobody could forecast or say predict or could even imagine he could do. So as a last thing, I would like to show you a very short video. It's 30 seconds. Giorgia Meloni, back in 2019, she focused on her Christian identity. Then it became a meme, and she's been teased a lot for this, but I think the message was pretty strong.
Sono italiana, sono cristiana, non me lo toglierete.
I am Giorgia, I am a mother, I'm Italian, I am Christian, nobody will take it away from me. Okay? So this is a very, very clear statement.
Sono Giorgia, sono una donna, sono una madre, sono italiana, sono cristiana.
Okay, so I'm a woman, Giorgia, I'm a woman, I'm a mother, I am Italian Christian, and nobody will take it away from me.
So it's like a real building the idea, the political of his campaign. It's really based on identity.
Identity actually played a prominent role. Let me, now I am going to unshare the screen. No, this is a new one. Okay. All right. Okay. Yes, identity played a prominent role, as frequently. So the identity is under threat. There is somebody that's threatening our identity, first migrants, but also other political parties that support migration, other political parties that, for example, are pushing for the rights of foreign-born citizens or children born in Italy from foreign-born parents and so on. And then the family, traditional family, you know, it's a mother, a father, and a son. So even on papers recently in Italy, it was possible to say parent one and parent two, and not only mother and father. And of course, she's against it. And yeah, typically right-wing positions.
Okay, that's very interesting. Thank you so much for the basement of your presentation. Now it's clear in our mind. It's who is who, which parties are now we are gonna govern in Italy. And I would like to ask you some question. Just if you could give a short answer, that will be perfect. I have just a few questions, and I really would like to know your opinion as an intellectual Italian. And I wonder, as inflation soars in Italy, as whereas any country in Europe, there is also promise to protect the purchasing power of families and giving them to really have better social economic welfare state. And this argument works not only in Italy, as I see, it was also the most important arguments in France. What is the current social economic condition in Italy for the moment? Are really people feeling poor? Are really people cannot access the hospital? Are really purchasing power of individual, the middle income of Italy condition? How is the daily life? How they really, that seems they didn't satisfy with previous government. And as far as we were hoping that Mario Draghi will change many things in Italy and will bring Italy in the power, at least in economically, but seems he couldn't. And I would like to really to understand what is going on social economic condition in Italy.
Okay, I'm trying to give a very short answer. The situation is very difficult, has never been so difficult in the last, as far as I remember, okay? For mainly for two reasons. After the pandemic, several businesses just shut down, they closed, because I'm thinking of the restaurants and bars, mainly. This is very clear, because the government promised very strong subventions to balance the closure, to balance the pandemic, but basically very, very few were actually delivered. And then in addition to this, after the first hit by the pandemic, now the increasing of the prices of energy hit. And so it's very, very difficult. We are very scared about this coming winter for many businesses, because I don't know how many could afford energy bills 3 or 4 times more expensive. Sometimes it's 3 or 4 times more expensive. Sometimes it's double. It's very, very, very hard.
Okay, that's really scary. And while it's not only in fact in Italy, we have seen also in France, and I have friends in Germany, they tell me the same story. But I think this kind of economical, social declining, pushing people also to vote for the radical parties, if I am not wrong. But I would like to ask you also, as you mentioned, she is totally against migration, and it will be the first time that one of the big European Union countries is under the mold of somebody who is not pro-Europe. That's what we heard from her. She has advocated for the dissolution of the Eurozone, if I am not wrong. She has warned conspiratorially that unnamed forces had guided immigrants en masse to Italy in the name of ethnic substitution, which you also mentioned. And I also see her tweet a few years ago against the conspiracy theory about, she also tweeted against it's like some multinational media or multinational firm that's the behind of this her argument. And within Meloni's party, there is a deeply held sentiment that European integration should be limited, and Italy should be able to define itself rather than taking directives from Brussels. That also could change the role of the European Union on the key issues such as migration or foreign affairs. So all these arguments, do you think that give us some idea that Italy will be one of the first big European Union countries split from European Union, or Union will be fragile more than ever?
That's a very interesting question. As far as migration is concerned, that is the easiest part of the answer. Probably we already had Matteo Salvini as Minister of the Interior, so probably they will try to limit migration from the sea. Probably, I don't know. She is evoking the blocking of all ships, that it's illegal, but she proposed it several times, saying no more ships could be able to come to the Italian coast without permission. That is actually not only illegal but also inapplicable and impossible to apply. But she proposed it several times, so it is clear how her position is towards migration. Okay, I am not sure that, because I know she said it and she has even written it, that she's against the European Union as an institution, that it is old and it is taking our sovereignty away from countries. I'm not sure, and I hope. She said recently that the voice of Italy will be stronger and will be more clearly heard in Europe. That's what she said, right? Whatever it means. She also said that she's going to form an uncompromising government, whatever it means again. Okay, so I don't think that Italy will leave the European country, or even that Italy will take any weird positions, but it might be that she might try to fight against the power of the EU in the politics and in the situation of single countries, especially in Italy. This is the idea I had, but again, it is completely unpredictable. We have to wait for the first European meetings and say, first of all, who the foreign minister will be, and how either she or the ministry will behave when they're there. Since this is what she said. They say that there will not be a tyrannic Europe anymore. There will not, we will not just follow the rules without making our voice heard.
Yeah, well, it's clear. It's really very similar arguments that what we heard before election in France, like from Le Pen and Zemmour. It's totally parallel argument. And my last question. I think in 1 month that will be clear about who is governing and who will be prime minister in Italy, and what is her first political step. What she really promised the Italian that he would do primarily.
Wow. Yes, maybe earlier than 1 month we'll have the government. Maybe earlier. Now we have for the president. We have to wait for the president, for President Mattarella, to give her the mandate. The similarity with France, since I followed the elections with some interest, the French elections, the election system played also a prominent role, because here at the end you have basically, like in a sport tournament, you have the final, right? Macron and Le Pen.
Yeah.
Here, not only we do not have this system, but also there is only one time. Okay, one vote, one person, one time, and then you follow the consequences of this vote for 5 years.
You don't have second term.
We have no second term, no, and
you also doesn't have presidential system because you
exactly, yeah. She also is proposing the direct election of the president, by the way, among a proposal. I don't know which the first move is going to be. It might be, but I'm just wondering, something towards the domestic situation. So I would say some extra help for the families in need. Let's say, okay, there's something that is going to impact directly, and then something that is going to show that we are stronger now. You know, now we have the government and we're stronger in Europe. We will be somehow telling the European Union which rules work for us and which rules don't work for us.
Okay.
I hope I answered your questions.
No, you really answered very well. I am quite satisfied, and I will gonna edit my video, so we'll publish, and I see some people are watching from YouTube. It was really clear, and I am really happy to have you again. As I mentioned earlier, I am planning to make a physical panel, and I would love to invite you in a month or like 5 weeks on forward. I am planning. And it will be clear what is gonna be a political situation in Italy. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation, dear Davide, and hope to see you again, and hopefully in Paris soon.
Thank you very much, Nevzat, and I hope to meet in Paris next time. And all the best for your center. You're doing a great job, so I wish your center a great future.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you again. Thanks again.